As you have heard, this case, the judge has dismissed it with prejudice, making it clear that it never can be brought back. Let me be clear. As I've said all along, this case should have never been brought. And I did nothing wrong.
I mean, I feel like some of the evidence that the public has already seen indicates that you might have done something wrong. But alas, a judge has in fact dismissed the corruption, bribery, and wire fraud case against New York Mayor Eric Adams. But while it might sound like a big win for Adams and possibly for the Trump administration, which has been accused of engaging in quid pro quo with Adams, there's a catch here. So buckle up. Judge Dale Ho issued a long opinion today, in fact, explaining why even though he has concerns about the Justice Department's motivations for dismissing the case, he went along with it anyway, all right? And it has to do with the fact that the Trump administration's Department of Justice had actually asked for the case to be dropped, but also wanted to retain the ability to restore charges later on. Man, that is like some mob activity, okay? Like, we're gonna drop it for now, but we reserve the right to bring it back, you know? So that was what was going on. Now, Judge Ho did not agree to that, instead dismissing the case with prejudice, meaning that the charges cannot be brought back. So in his strongly worded ruling, Ho rejected the Justice Department's argument that prosecutors were politically motivated in bringing the case against Eric Adams, and also that the charges were impacting Adams's ability to carry out Trump's immigration agenda. He said everything here smacks of a bargain. Dismissal of the indictment in exchange for immigration policy concessions. He wrote in a 78-page opinion, he said DOJ's position is disturbing because it implies public officials may receive special treatment if they go along with political priorities. Are we really surprised by that? I mean, look, this isn't good. I think it's unfair that someone who engaged in corruption schemes and took bribes allegedly from foreign nationals is basically getting away with it now. I think it's unfair. I think if you're breaking the law, you should suffer the consequences for that. But the culture in which Judge Ho is concerned about has existed for a long time in this country. I mean, politicians, people in positions of power have engaged in all sorts of criminality and have gotten away with it. So, I mean, okay, but sure, let's pretend like this is like a new thing. He said the DOJ's position is disturbing. This suggestion is fundamentally incompatible with the basic promise of equal justice under the law. We don't have equal justice under the law in the United States. You know that, Judge Ho. Judge Ho. Dismissing the case without prejudice would create the unavoidable perception that the mayor's freedom depends on his ability to carry out the immigration enforcement priorities of the administration, and that he might be more beholden to the demands of the federal government than he wishes of his own constituents. And then here's a breakdown from a legal analyst of exactly what all of this means.
What this judge is worried about is that he thinks the government wants to hold leverage over Eric Adams. If he dismissed the case without prejudice, that would mean that these charges could be brought again. So he thinks that this is the fairest way to handle this case. And he's very clear here that this has nothing to do with the merits of the case against Eric Adams, Vlad. It's that he thinks this is the best way to proceed because he also cannot force the Justice Department to continue prosecuting this case. And he thinks it's fairest to the defendant, Eric Adams, because he expresses that it seems quite clear to him that they were trying to create leverage over him. Now, this case against Eric Adams is dismissed and these charges cannot be brought again.
So I want to be clear, even though Eric Adams is saying that the case was dismissed because he did nothing wrong, that is not true. So I understand the judge's reasoning here, John, I do, because he doesn't want the Trump administration to have this like power over Adams, essentially threatening to prosecute him for the corruption charges if he doesn't play ball with the immigration policies of the administration. So I understand the decision. And on top of that, the judge doesn't have the power to force the prosecution of Eric Adams by the Justice Department.
Yeah, which I think would be, if he could, a much better way to take away the power of the Trump administration over him. That sword hanging over his head that the charges might come back. If you just leave them there in the first place, then we wouldn't have to worry about that. And we'd actually get justice. To what Eric Adams earlier said about and from the beginning I've said I didn't do anything wrong. Well, I guess we'll never know because we're not gonna have the actual trial. So reasonable people are for the rest of your life gonna look at you and see you as the guy that got saved by Donald Trump. And stuff is just sort of lingering out there that was never really adjudicated, never really investigated. And so if people want to imply that, hell, there was a lot of strong evidence against you, they're gonna be able to do that. And you're never gonna be able to say, no, we've already been through this and it turned out I was innocent. You will never, ever be innocent. You will only be free in this particular case. On the judge's reasoning, I guess the reasoning to some extent makes sense. I find what he said, the way he said it, very frustrating. All this about it could do this and it might, no, it did. Dude, you know that it did. All of this is already true. And the thing about it is, it's easy to point out, that the Trump administration seems like they were trying to wield this power over Eric Adams, which they definitely were. But you could also point out that Eric Adams did everything you could or would do if you were trying to set up this sort of quid pro quo situation.
100%.
For months he was lobbying to get this. So Trump and Trump's DOJ are not the only corrupt looking ones here, by the way. And by the way, so first of all, the fear that he might do stuff that Trump wants rather than his constituents because of the fear of something. This takes away one sort of mechanism that the Trump administration could use against him. But what do you think? They're just gonna be like, oh shucks, that's it. I guess we'll let justice reign or whatever. They could look for other stuff. Do we know that the charges included all of his corrupt actions in the past?
Oh, that's a good point. I mean, but look, do I think the Trump administration is gonna engage in a fishing expedition against Eric Adams? I mean, Eric Adams at this point is a bit of a lame duck mayor. There's a mayoral race currently happening for New York City. So I don't think Adams has a bright political future ahead. In fact, he is very, very low on the polling. I can't believe he's even running for re-election, but he is. He's running for re-election. Currently in the Democratic primary, you have Andrew Cuomo polling ahead of everybody. So it seems likely that Cuomo's gonna win the Democratic primary. I don't know if a Republican really has a chance in New York City, but that's where the race currently stands. I think Eric Adams' days in elected office are numbered. But unbelievably, Adams decided to give a little book recommendation during his address after it was announced that his case was dropped. Do you know about this?
No, I don't.
No. So the book he's holding up is something you should be paying close attention to in this next clip. Take a look.
Many of you know my faith. When all that came at me, Jesus stepped in. And he uses who he uses. And New Yorkers stop me all the time in trying to find the rationale behind this. And I found it in this book. I'm going to encourage every New Yorker to read it. Read it and understand how we can never allow this to happen to another innocent American. God bless you.
Did you think he was gonna hold up the Bible?
Jesus Christ.
Did you think he was gonna hold up the Bible? He held up a book. Let's take a look at the book. Here's the cover. Here's the cover of the book. Government Gangsters by Kash Patel.
I wonder how long back and forth Kash Patel went being like, do I look like a dweeb in this? This is the coolest I've ever looked, I think. I'll go with it. I love that he held it up.
That is a cool shot, I have to admit.
It has a helicopter in it, I guess that's cool.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's blocking part of the image. Every part of the image that's blocked by Kash Patel is less cool than it would otherwise be. And yes, I do mean the trees. The trees are cooler. Anyway, all of what we just saw would make sense if he then dropped into one of his cool new trash cans, I guess.
Yeah.
And I love he's like, Jesus stepped in. No, dude, Trump stepped in. That's it.
100%. That's why he's holding up the Bible. That's the administration's Bible.
It
right?
is, I guess.
That's the book that Patel published with the enemies list. So, welcome to our trash revolution. We've had plenty of trash resolutions, that's for sure.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.